Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate everybody coming. I want to thank Justin, and then also Josh Adelhart here is from Greensburg. He came down to help. Wyatt Sperry, Supervisor DC here in Medicine Lodge. They're all here to answer questions and talk about things. So first thing I wanted to start with today is talking about the grazing stick, and then also a little bit about range and pasture monitoring. So that's what the big handout here is, and it's just some things to go over when you get home or now if you want to, but why monitoring, what is monitoring, some different techniques. So feel free to take a look at that. One thing that we talked about last time, and Yvonne was at the last one, and is the grazing stick here, and it's a short grass and a mid grass, and we're technically in the mid grass, as probably all of you know. And then we talked about the grazing efficiency, which is on here. For continuous grazing and for pastures, we go 25%. So we can take 25%. So we take half, leave half, and of the half we take half of that. So that's that 25%. So that's where that number comes from. And then on here it says estimated available dry matter in pounds per inch per acre. So right now, with our growth curve, which is also on here, we're past September, so there's no more growth occurring. So we can figure that 100% of our growth has occurred for the year, so we can figure how much grass we have off of this, a rough estimate. So if we're looking right down here on this hill where we've got a lot of little blue stem Indian grass, you know, you're probably at your high plant density, medium to high plant density, so that way you can figure your poundages here off the grazing stick. To do that, if you guys kind of want to migrate over a little bit. And we were talking about this a little bit earlier with the group, some of the group. When you're looking at measuring your plant density, we don't always take the whole plant into consideration. Right now you probably could take a little bit more into consideration than you did in the middle of the summer, because that's all we've got. They're going to eat most of that plant. Where in the summertime when it's green, they're going to eat the green high protein stuff. So I always just kind of go down, especially in the growing season. I'll go down and I'll start to feel where we start getting our leaves, and that's where I'll measure at. This time of the year, I would maybe take a little bit off the top there and go, you know, so 18 inches. Say for this here, and then so we can figure that off of that. So for the mixed native grass in a high plant density, 160 to 230 pounds per inch per acre. So you can turn your pounds into pounds per acre off of that. And then it has the formulas on here as well, how to figure your stocking rate. So that would be after the whole year's growth. So thinking about that during the growing season, you have to take into consideration your growth curve on there. But where we're dormant, now we can take up to 6 inches is what we usually recommend within RCS, 6 inches in the dormant season. So we can graze this all the way down to 6 inches. So you can monitor that throughout the dormant season while you're grazing that if you choose to do that. That's one way to kind of monitor that. The other way we kind of do this is through our exclusion cages. We recommend putting exclusion cages out for our programs, but also we recommend keeping them out after the program's over, just because you can see yourself what's happening out there. You can see how much grass you really are taking, and that kind of opens people's eyes up to what kind of grass that's really there, really growing this year compared to other years. So that's kind of all I wanted to talk about on the grazing stick portion. If we flip over to this soil map, which is right out of Web Soil Survey, I kind of put a circle where I roughly thought we were going to be at, but we're on the other side of the windmill there. But we're still in soil series 5957, so that's a Schellenberger sandy loam. So we're kind of on a sandy site. And then you flip over and it goes to range sites. So with NRCS and other agencies, they'll a lot of times go to ecological sites, and those are split up by similar soil types that have similar production. And this one I think was a sandy. Yeah, so we are in a sandy site. If you see that, if you flip to the very back page, or back two pages of that group there, we have our state and transition model. So it's kind of hard to read here, but that's our state and transition model. We kind of use these on planning and that sort of thing. Everybody find that there? Okay, so and start it's midgrass plant community, historic climax plant community. So that's historically what we're after. And the historic plant community was characterized by side oats, grama, and little blue stem. So in this particular site where we're standing, we've got quite a bit of little blue stem. And also it says some tall grass occurred. Sand blue stem was the most common, with sand drop seed, 3 awns, hairy grama, fall witchgrass, sand drop seed, blue grama, and buffalo grass tall grasses occurred occasionally, with sand blue stem the most common. And then those others were the common short grasses that occurred. And so the production for this site is estimated to be anywhere from 1,800 pounds to 3,600 pounds to the acre. And then we can go into a little bit more of that. You guys can look at that later, but 1.2 is a mixed grass dominated grassland and is being encroached by woody species. So as we start going down this hill, we would get into something like that. We'd start seeing our other trees and our plums start to come in. So we allow for a percentage of that in our second transition. So in our second state, we allow for a little bit of that to be there. However, if we want to get back to historic, we would want none to maybe 1 pound per acre of trees and woody species. Does that kind of cover everything you think on?
I think pretty well, yeah.
Okay. So the next thing we'll talk about is soil health, and Josh and I are both going to kind of work on that together and discuss some things here. So take the mic there.
Okay. Everyone hear me all right? So like Lody said, I'm Josh Adelhart. I'm the district conservationist in Greensburg and acting in Pratt, so I float around here, there, and everywhere. And Lody asked me to speak a little bit yesterday about soil health and rangeland. So which probably most people think when you think soil health, you know, most people are thinking crops and that type of world. Also, you know, as part of our planning system, we look at soil health as a whole in every type of system out there. So which obviously we look at rangeland the same way. So some of the things that we look at and consider, you know, same thing as in a cropland world. You know, by having, you know, different crops growing out there, different plants, different species, stuff like that, that creates a better diversity. Within there, you get more bugs, more soil aggregation, and different things like that out there. So, you know, a monoculture site like where we're at, primarily here, you know, like Lody said, we're primarily in a, you know, more of a less right here on top on a sod-bound type state. You know, soil infiltration-wise, water infiltration-wise, probably not quite as high as what we are as we go further down the hill, where we've got more little blue stem, Indian grass, some more of our taller grasses. Another thing I was taught when I very first started was, you know, looking at plants and infiltration is you look at what's above ground and you can mirror that basically on what's under the ground as far as your root structure goes. So, you know, on your buffalo grass, stuff like that, right in here, you know, where you've got 2 to 3 inches of plant on top, that's probably pretty close, you know, 2 to 3 to 4 is probably what you got below. In this blue stem area right in here where we've got 16, 18 inches, that's probably where we're kind of looking at with some of that stuff with the plants on moisture availability and how far the roots will go down below. So, you know, these droughts that we had a few years ago, some of the grasses that held on the longest were some of our taller plants because they had a longer root system with it. They were able to go down deeper, pull that moisture back up, and kept them going longer. So that's about what I'm covering right there. Anything else you think of, Lody, to add on to?
The only other thing we kind of talked about also is the cow manure. And this time of the year, this is actually a dormant season graze pasture. So he just put the cows in here maybe last week, I think. But the manure in the summertime, sometimes you'll see dung beetles and those sort of things. So if you see more of those, that tells us that our microbes and our small organisms are active. If we don't see that, we've probably don't have those and don't have as much soil activity. Not saying that it doesn't occur, but that activity may show you kind of what's going on below the ground, sometimes above the ground too. And then also we can kind of see sometimes people get worried about cow pies being there and kind of killing the grass out on those spots. We flipped that one over there right behind Wyatt, and there's still a little bit of green grass under there. So it can be an insulation spot and have some grass. You may not have the same grass, but You know, if talking about a wildlife standpoint, might be some cover later in the winter for something, or something might dig up underneath there and be able to find something to eat. So just more points on that. Talking with Chad about this place, we talked about the plums, and he said, well, I'd like to see them all gone. Plums are somewhat native to this area and to soils like sandy sites, which is what we're on. However, they can get out of hand, as we know and see across the countryside here. But Chad and I talked about it, and he said, well, I'm thinking about implementing some burning. And I said, well, if you just want to control them and slow them down from spreading, that's what they need. If you're looking to completely annihilate them, you're probably going to have to use some chemical for the first year or two to kind of knock them back and get ahead of them. But Chad did say he spends money every year to cut trees, and I applauded Chad for that, and I said that's what we have to do. You don't have to kill every tree here, but if you spend some money every year, you might get ahead eventually. May not show the progress right away, but we'll get there eventually. And if he plans to burn after that fact, we'll see a lot of progress. And he did say that lower bottom, some guys lease the ground to deer hunt. So he said, I really probably won't do much with that. And I told Chad, I said, well, you're losing a little bit of grazing, but I said, your money-wise, you probably are making more money than you could grazing that. And he said, yeah, that's the whole reason for me doing what I'm doing there. And I said, I understand. So that's kind of the background and some of that. So if we want to, if you guys are okay with it, unless we need did you bring water up here, Justin? No? Okay. We'll just take a little walk through here and look at what species we have as far as grasses. And if you guys see anything that you guys want to talk about, feel free to speak up. This is as open as you guys want it to be. So discuss amongst yourselves, discuss with us, however we want to do it. If you see a plant that you know that I don't know, great, spout it out.
Probably next.
Yeah.